We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. It's because of our learning, Hashem, the base of Mikdash immediately.
Good morning.
Good morning, Moshe. Today we're going to start Amar Rava. It's about halfway down the page, a little bit above the wide lines on 101b. Follow from the base. Amar Rava, Amar Rab Nachman, halacha chalitza b'shleisha. The halacha is chalitza only requires 3 people, not 5. Because we have a stam mishnah. We have an anonymous mishnah. Our mishnah is anonymous. It says mitzvahs chalitza b'shleisha. That's it. Stam mishnah. Halachic stam. Gemara says, Amar le Rava le Rav Nachman. Rava says to Rav Nachman, Hachi miyan nami. So miyan, which is when a girl walks out of a marriage because she was married by her brothers and she doesn't require a get, she can just reject her husband. So that should also be the same. The Tanan hamiyan v'chalitza b'shleisha, miyan should also require 3 people. So maybe it doesn't require anyone. Maybe she can just walk out. But we have a Stam Mishnah. So if the Stam Mishnah is going to do it, so it's not here, it's in Sanhedrin, but that's also a Stam Mishnah. Maybe you'll say, yeah, that's the halacha. But Tanya, but we have a brayso. Miyon, when it comes to miyon, b'shamei emrim bezdin mumchin, they need to be expert judges that the miyon needs to be in front of. And b'silam bezdin or shlei bezdin. Doesn't need to be a bezdin. Everyone agrees that there needs to be 3. Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yosi, machshirim b'shnayim. Maybe Rabbi Lazar bar Shimon. There's 2 versions of the Gemara here. It's Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eli's son, Rabbi Yosi. And the other one is either Rabbi Lazar bar Rabbi Yosi or Rabbi Lazar bar Shimon, which we're familiar with. Rabbi Lazar bar Yosi also. But machshirim b'shnayim. They allow 2 people to be there for the miyan, to reject the husband. We know the halacha is like them, that you only need 2. Rav Nachman himself says you only need 2. Now Rav Nachman said that chalitza needs 3. Rav Nachman says miyan needs 2. But if he follows the Stam Mishnah, so he has a Stam Mishnah over there as well that says the miyan is 2. Miyan is 3. So why does he say it's 2? What's the difference?
What's the difference? Based on the other witnesses.
Right. So, but the question in halacha is, are we taking a Stam Mishnah to be the halacha or not? Where it says, I have 2 Mishnayos that say that chalitza requires 3, and you only have 1 Mishnah that says that that miyon requires 3. So that's why it's not a problem, because it's 2, and that's really going to tell us the din. If it's 2 Stam Mishnahs, it's 2 Stam Mishnayos, where it says Hasam nami tre Stam minino, where it's taking an interesting approach here. It's like being led into this. I mean, instead of asking right away, what's the difference 1 or 2? If 1 works, if 2 works, then 1 should also work. But the Gemara says, oh, you think over there it's only 1 by miyan. By miyan, it's 2. We have 2 Mishnayos as well. Hasam nami tre Stam minino. It's not miyan. I shachatzu b'fanav yisenam epnei shu bebezdin. Interesting Mishnah. Mishnah says, good morning. Mishnah says that there's certain times that the judge involved should not end up marrying the woman because it doesn't look right that he's the one that does brings the get or something, and then he ends up marrying her. Everything is all dependent on him, and then maybe there was something dishonest here. How this is working out. We're holding on 101A, 101B. and we're holding by, what would it say? What would be the heading? It's Rava and Reb Nachman on 101b. So one of the cases over there was that if this rabbi was there by the mian, who was there by the chalitza, he's allowed to marry the woman. We don't say that there was something that's not correct going on here. Why? Because it's not just him that we're relying on. There's a whole bezdin there. So the whole bezdin's not going to mix in just to, allow him to marry her. It must be that this was a regular case, and it turned out after the story, he ended up marrying her. All right. But one of the things that we see over here is Neshu Bezdin. Neshu Bezdin. So you see, Mian is a Bezdin, Mian is Shleisha. So you see, we have two Mishnayos that say that Mian requires 3. So why do you tell me that Mian is only 2? Because he only had one Mishnah that says it. Elahasam Tres Tamiachat plus a Stami. See, now we're really getting led into this. Rather, Mian has two Mishnayos that requires 3, and Chalitza has 3 Mishnayos that says that it requires 3. Okay, the Gemara says 1 second. 1 second. Michti. Let's see. Hastam of a Hastam. It's a Stam Mishnah. Mali Chad Stam. What's the difference if there's 1 anonymous Mishnah? Mali Trey Stam. What's the difference if there's 2? Mali Tlas. What's the difference if there's 3? I mean, that should have been the first question. What's the difference if there's 1 or 2? If the halacha is like a Stam Mishnah, then that's it. We have a Stam Mishnah. Elam Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Hayel Vestam B'Makim Machlekes the Tanan Smicha Sekena Veglarufa B'Shleisha Div Rab Yosi Rab Yudam B'Chamisha Hachalitza V'Amyunim B'Shleisha like a Polyg Rab Yehuda Shmamina Hadabe Rab Yehuda Shmamina. The Gemara didn't mean to say, or rather probably Rav Nachman didn't mean to say that the reason why he's paskening that Chalitza requires only 3 is because there's a Stam Mishnah. What he meant to say was that we have a Stam Mishnah right next to a Machlekes. Now, this is not the din of Stam Bachakach Machlekes and Machlekes Bachakach Stam. It has nothing to do with that. This is, I have another case that Rabbi Yehuda is arguing with. And when it comes to this case, he doesn't say anything. That tells me that Rabbi Yehuda actually changed his mind. That if Rabbi Yehuda, which we said before, required 5, because we had a brisa. The brisa said, Rabbi Yehuda Imer B'Chamisha. Rabbi Yehuda says it requires 5. We have a Stam Mishnah that it requires 3. And right next to that Stam Mishnah, we have a Machlekes between Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Yehuda about Egla Rufa and Smicha Zekenim. Do you need 5? Or do you need 3? When it comes to Chalitza, there's no Machlekes, everyone says 3. So it must be that Rabbi Yehuda, even though he knows that the Mishnah is saying, that the sages are saying 3, he's not commenting. Why is he not commenting? He just commented a second ago. It must be because Rabbi Yehuda himself was chayzer. So what Rav Nachman meant to say was that because the Sasam Lantana Kava say, that means that Rabbi Yehuda himself was quiet. Whereas ignoring the main point, that why does he need that? But if there's a Stam Mishnah, then halacha should be like the Stam Mishnah. Maybe he doesn't hold halacha to Stam.
So this circumstance is treated as silence as a measure.
Yeah. Is it possible that there's someone that doesn't hold halacha to Stam Mishnah? I mean, Rabbi Yochanan gave us that statement, halacha to Stam Mishnah. But does Reb Nachman not hold like that halacha to Stam Mishnah? And that's why he has to come up with some other theory of why the halacha is like this, not because of the Stam Mishnah. I don't know. Okay. Let's go further. We're holding at Amar Rava. Rava says, Trichi Dayani lemikvi duchta. The Dayanim have to establish a place of where the person's supposed to go. The Yevama and the Yavam. But in the psukim over there, the Yevama comes to the Zakanim and she says that Layava Yavmi, he doesn't want to do Yivam. And they call him and he goes up to the place and they ask him and he says he doesn't want to, and she takes off his shoe and spits and they pronounce Beis Chalatzanal. So the Ksiv also Yevimtei Hashara El Zakanim. The Yevama, his Yevama goes up to the gates to the elders. Rav Papa, Rav Huna B'Reid, Rav Yeshua, Avdi of the V'chamisha. They did a chalitza, not even. They did a chalitza with 5 people there. Where it says, come on, who does that go like? Rabbi Yehuda. You're following Rabbi Yehuda v'Haderbei. The Gemara just said a minute ago, Rabbi Yehuda retracted from that opinion because we saw that he didn't argue.
Do you have to have 3 or can you have more? Like, I thought the minimum was 3.
That's what we're about to find out. The Gemara says, Lepersumi Milsa. You don't really need 5. The 5 was not for the best, and the 5 was just to announce there's more people there, then the word will get out. Why do they need the word to get out? So there's 2 possibilities. One is because they want all the Kayanim around to know that this woman, even though she's a widow, but she's usher to a Kayan because she just had Chalitza. So the more people that are there will know that she's usher to marry a Kayan. Other possibility is they wanted to know that she's permissible to everyone else. Muteres lakol, it's good for shidduchim to know that she's free to get married. Okay. Ravashi ikla lebei Rav Kana. Ravashi happened to be in the house of Rav Kana. Amarlei salak mar legaban lemilui bechamisha. Let the master go up. It's interesting. Rav Kana is always like Ravashi held Rav Kana in high esteem. It's not the Rav Kana, the Talmud of Rav. There's several Rav Kanas, but we have many times in the Gemara where Ravashi says he asked Rav Kana. Anyway, over here it seems like Rav Kana is telling him to come to Chalitza, and he should fill in to be part of the 5. Apparently, you need 5. Now, he calls him Mar, which is interesting. I guess even though he was probably considered a student, but Rav Kana still respected him enough to call him Mar, the master. Let the master. Amar Rav Kana, Havikimna Kamed Rav Yehuda. Kana said, I was in front of Rav Yehuda. Amar Li, Tasak Lizir Zedekani Letstuf Bechamisha. I bet this is a different Rav Kana, because Rav Kana, that's in the days of Ravashi, highly unlikely that he was by Rav Yehuda. This must be Rav Kana, that's the other Talmud of Rav. Remember, there was a Talmud of Rav Kana, was under Rav's bed once. Remember that story? It was Rav Kana. But Rav Yehuda is a student of Rav. So there's another student of Rav. He says, I was in front of Rav Yehuda. I guess it's his friend. He says, come, go up to the sack, means go up. Lizir Zedekani. That means the bundle of reeds. That there must have been like a place where they sat. L'tztarufa bechamisha, to join in with the 5 that we need for the chalitza. Amrulai, it's probably Amrilai. I said to him, Lama li chamisha. Why do you need 5? Amar lahu. It's probably Amar li. I have on the side Yavitz is correcting this. You actually don't. We just want people to know about it, so to publicize it, so you have more people there. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda habikoi kamei de Rav Yehuda. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda was in front of Rav Yehuda. Amalei, he said to him, "Sak tell us years of the kanesu bechamisha. Go up to the place where everyone's sitting. We need 5 people there." says lepersumi milsa, so that everyone should know. Amrale Kanina be Yisrael. It says be Yisrael to announce. Forget the full pasuk. We had it before yesterday. It said
25:10 to the right. All right.
Yeah, what was the pasuk? It said,
His name shall be called in Israel.
yeah, his name shall be called in Israel. Beis Chalitzanal. So it says be Yisrael, be Bezdin shall Yisrael, like Bezdin shall Gerim. It's not supposed to be in a court that's made up from converts. Bano Gerana, and I'm a convert. This is Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. How does he have the name Yehuda? How does he have Bar Yehuda if he's a convert? Should be Bar Avram.
His father was Jewish and married.
But if he converts,
His father
So-
he gets a new.
the name. He gets the name Avram. No,
Is that right? Oh,
Even if he had a Jewish father.
there's discussion over here.
so they would have, they would be Bas Sarah and Bas Abraham. Is that?
That's what usually we assume. Maybe this is where I know that it is possible that to be called after the person that raised him. Maybe his Yehuda was his father that raised him. You want to say that it's the biological father is good enough, even in,
I'm saying to me, it's just an occurrence we see many times.
that if the father's Jewish and the child had to convert, they just call him by the. Maybe. Anyway, he says he's a ger. I'm Rav Yehuda. Now the Gemara, we mentioned his name. Rav Yehuda says, "Gain Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda mafiknu memayna apumei memayna apumei." Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda is such a great person, such a trustworthy person, that we would actually extract money from someone else just by his mouth. Gemara says, "Mafikna salkadaitach." Really? You would extract money? That's not how it works in court. Al pi shnayim eidim amrachmana. You need two witnesses. Just because he's a good guy doesn't mean that you're going to change the law for him. You know, the law is the law. We have this set up for a reason. So, Ella marana shtara pumei. Rather, there is an exception to this law of al pi shnayim eidim. That if someone pulls out a document, it says that someone owes another that Ruvain owes Shimon money, right? The Shimon pulls out the document. Says Ruvain owes me money. Ruvain says, I know there's a document, but I paid it. The document is correct, but after that I paid it. I don't have the receipt, but I lost the receipt, but
Oh, it's
I
just
paid it. Now,
his word.
if this person is a very trustworthy person, or if maybe one individual would say that he paid it or something, and he's a very trustworthy person, then it's an exception to the rule. So, we can ruin a document by saying that the document was already paid based on his testimony.
Who has to not have it in his possession? No. Because if his word contradicts the document,
Yeah, it's a problem. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. So,
Right. The problem is that there's a reason why documents are you have a document, you can't go that's like a contract, there's something you can just say, but there's other things going on that you don't know about.
yeah,
I mean, what it's not saying is that apparently they wouldn't need a sure.
Right.
One witness. He's got one witness. Witness two.
Right.
Impose a shubuah on the other person.
Right. that he's going to require a shvua according to Tosfos in order to collect.
So you will require a shvua.
To collect, not to get out of it. The other person. Yeah, there's ways that this to work this out. It's not so simple. Okay. Amar Rava. Rava says, Ger danes chaveri dvar Torah. Even though there was a even though there was a problem with the ger sometimes on a bezdin, like we said before, by Yisrael, by chalitza, but when it comes to judging his friend, another ger, that's not a problem. You can have a bezdin that has a ger dayan, but that would be for other gerim. Shenemar sing tasim malach melach hashiyivcha Hashem alekecha bay mikar v'checha tasim malach melach, and it's alecha who the be'inan mikar v'checha v'l ger danas chaverai ger. It says you should place on yourself a king.
This convert, when he judges, is he like on the base then? Like he's an actual judge? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting that they're calling the judge a king because he has power. So it says the power should be given mikerav achecha, from amongst your brothers. You have to choose someone from amongst your brothers. You should place on you a king. Now, when it says on you, it's referring to the other Jewish people. That's who should be the king or the judge. But however, Ger, the convert that's not from amongst your brothers, he's allowed to judge. He's allowed to be a judge, but not for the other Jewish people. He's allowed to be a judge for other converts. But if his mother is Jewish, how is he a convert if his mother's Jewish? So it's following that opinion that says that if the father's not Jewish, they have to convert. Donafilu Yisrael, then he can even judge another Jew. This won't be relevant for us because we don't hold that anyway. We hold that if the mother is Jewish, she's not considered a convert. But when it comes to chalitza, avim Yisrael, then he needs to have both. Avim Yisrael. You see Tosfos. Le'inyan chalitza adshe avim Yisrael. Pirish ime leisagi adshe gam aviv Yisrael. The mother's not enough. You need to have also the father. Aval ba'aviv lechud sagi. But the father alone would be enough. What does that mean? The father alone would be enough. That means the mother doesn't need to be Jewish, just the father. When it comes to kahuna, sagi b'aviv Yisrael. What does that mean? The mother's not Jewish, and the father's a kohen, so the child becomes a kohen when he converts. Doesn't make sense. It must mean that the mother converted. It means the mother converted, and the mother's a convert. The father is from amongst you. That's what it must be. What Tosfos means. That the mother's Jewish. Of course, the mother's Jewish.
It says.
Yeah, that's a problem. The mother can't. The child will be a chalal.
As a judge unless both his father and mother were from Israel from birth.
What are you reading?
Right here, but with regard to chalitza, may not act as a judge unless both his father and his mother were from Israel from birth.
Yeah, now from birth means his father and mother, or from birth means his birth?
His father and mother, both his father and his mother were from Israel from birth.
You get the question? It's not
am I
perfectly
missing
clear.
something?
No, even in that sentence, his father and his mother from his father and his mother from his birth were from Israel. Or does it mean his father and his mother were from Israel from birth?
What's the difference?
His father and mother converted. It's not from their birth, it's from his birth.
Oh. Oh, his, yeah. Unless both his father, yeah,
There's two ways of reading that sentence.
right.
They need a contract lawyer to write that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, whatever the
Yeah,
case
he
is.
must be born from a member of Am Yisrael, from the Jewish people, like
Okay.
his parents.
Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, the Nikra Shmai Yisrael, that is, they call his name in Israel, Beis Chalutzanal, yeah, the house of the removed shoe. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Kana, Amar Rav. Okay, that's Rav Kana, the student of Rav. Im Yavai Eliyahu v'yoymar cholzin b'minol, if Eliyahu Hanavi would come and tell us that you're allowed to use a shoe, not a sandal, for chalitza. Shoe is like a soft leather. Shaimanlai, we would believe Eliyahu and we would accept that. We would say, yeah, you're allowed to use a soft leather shoe. If he would tell us, Ein cholzin b'sandal, if Eliyahu Hanavi would tell us, but you can't use a sandal, Ein shaimanlai, we would not listen to him. Shekvar nagu am b'sandal, because that's our custom. We already use the sandal. Sandal apparently is a little bit harder on the bottom. It's like a thicker leather or something.
So are we done with this whole discussion about the basement?
Yeah.
True words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it, no, that was in the Mishnah. So I was for tomorrow.
Rav Yosef Amar Rav Kana Amar Rav. Oh, isn't that interesting? So machlekes really here between Rabba and Rav Yosef. What Rav Kana said in the name of Rav. So Im Yavai Eliyahu v'yoymar ein cholzin b'minol shaimanlai. If Eliyahu Hanavi would tell us that you don't use a shoe, we would listen to him. Yeah, it's the opposite of Rabba. Rabba said if he would tell us that you do use a shoe, we would listen to him. It says if he would tell us you don't use a shoe, we would listen to him. So the shoe can go in or out. That's what we're learning over here. The question is where it's starting. That's where the machlek is. Do we use a shoe before Eliyahu Hanavi comes? According to Rabbi Yosef, yes. Eliyahu Hanavi would tell us not to use the shoe. Okay, fine, we would listen. Ein cholzin b'sandal, but if he would tell us not to use the sandal, then ein shaimanlai shekvar nagam b'sandal. Okay, everyone agrees to that the sandal is acceptable. My bina, what's the difference between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef? It could be nayo min lechatchila. Are you allowed to use a shoe before Eliyahu Hanavi comes? Lechatchila, just go ahead and use the shoe for the chalitza. According to the opinion that says that you are allowed to lechatchila, that was Rabbi Yosef's opinion. You're allowed to use a shoe, but we have a Mishnah. Cholza b'minol chalitzasa kshera, that if a shoe was used, it's kosher. That means that if it was used after the fact, not lechatchila, they call that ad initio. Whatever that means. Initially. Di'evedin lechatchila lai. That means only b'di'eved it's kosher to use the shoe, but lechatchila you're not supposed to use the shoe. It's a kasha on Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says lechatchila. When Rabbi Yosef said lechatchila, there were two meanings to that word. One is lechatchila means before Eliyahu Hanavi comes, and also lechatchila means that you're allowed to use it initially. The Gemara says who adin da'afil lechatchila. The truth is that when it says over here that if you did chalitza with a shoe, it's going to be kosher. Really, it means that you're allowed to go ahead and use a shoe as well. That if you use the cloth type of shoe, what was it? Anpilia. It's like socks or something.
It's not a brand name.
No, it could be a brand name.
Anpilia.
Then it's
like
puzzle. Then it's puzzle. Dafilu di'eved, even b'di'eved it's puzzle. So tanam reisha di'eved. So that's why in the reisha it also gave us a ruling of a di'eved, which means that it's kosher, as opposed to you're allowed to. It's kosher means that usually it means that you weren't supposed to, but we will accept it. You're allowed to means that you're allowed to go ahead. And it didn't say you're allowed to. It just said it's kosher. So it sounds like it's the Eved only after the fact. You weren't supposed to. But the reason why it said that is because we had another case where even after the fact it was possible. So it said over there that it's kosher. But really, it would have said, if it didn't have any other cases here, it would have told us the real din that you're allowed to eat the lachatchila. Okay. The Gemara says, "Mina lachatchila tanaihi."
This is the shoe salesman's Gemara.
Yeah, yeah,
It's big to see.
yeah. The Gemara is very. In other places, the Gemara wants us to have good shoes. You know, it says, "Spend your money on shoes, not on food." Remember that Gemara?
Sell the beams of your house to get the shoe.
Yeah, sell the beams of your house, right?
What'd you say?
Sell the beams of your house to buy shoes. There was a Gemara like that. Where was that in
Or
Brachos?
was it clothing?
No.
Shoes.
Shoes.
Like,
Yeah.
good.
Is there a discussion somewhere? Why this matters? What kind of footwear?
Yeah,
Is
It's down here. Yeah. Mina lechatchila tanaihi. The shoe lechatchila, to use a shoe, is a machlekes tanaim. The tanya we have a brisa. Brisa says Amar Reb Yosi, the Tosefta switches it to Reb Shimon. Pamachas alachti leNetzivin. One time I went to Netzivin. Netzivin is somewhere in Turkey, I think. Matzasi zaken echad. I found an old person over there. Amarti like klumat baki barab Yehuda ben Beseira. It's a funny expression. Baki means an expert, but I guess it means, are you familiar with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira? Must have been a much earlier generation.
Nope.
You remember Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira? Amali Hain val Shulchani Hutader. Says, yeah, he's at my table all the time. Shulchani may mean that he was a banker and that he came to his banking table all the time, or it may mean that he would eat at his house. But to say stam that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira would eat at his house, like, that's a funny thing. But that's it. Al Shulchani. Okay. Klum Risa Shechalas B'Yevama. Maybe it was like this great sage. He says, did you ever see that he did chalitza? Amarli Reisi Shechalatz Harbi Pam. I saw a lot of chalitzas. Okay, we're getting somewhere. The minolay besandal. Did he use a shoe or a sandal? Amarli. So this elder, the zakin. Oh, did someone say that the zakin was Eliyahu? No, that was Ahusaba was Eliyahu. He says to me, "B'chicholzin b'minol. Are you allowed to use a shoe?" They quote this pasuk. Rashi takes it out. It says, "V'atayra menalay v'loy menalay." There says, not his nal, not his minal. Anyway, whatever the case is, you're not allowed to use a shoe. Amarti loy, he said, "Imkein ma ra Reb Meir lay merchaltz b'minal chalitzas kshera." Then why did Reb Meir say that it's kosher if you're not allowed to? Rabbi Yaakov Eimer Mishmai. Rabbi Yaakov says in his name, which means in Reb Meir's name, choltzin b'minal lachatchila, that you're allowed to use it even lachatchila. Is that a machlekes there? That's what it seems like. So mina lachatchila tanaihi. It sounds like it's a machlekes between Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Yaakov. What Reb Meir shita is. You follow? It's machlekes if you're allowed to use a shoe lachatchila. Mandam lachatchila loy my timer. What would be the reason for saying that you're not allowed to use the shoe? If you say that, it means that panta is the top of the shoe. What do you call the top of the shoe? Like we have a tongue of there, but it goes over the foot. Is there a name for that?
We call it the upper.
The upper part of the shoe, and then the straps, the arkasa, the laces, go on top of that. B'atayra amra me'al, that you take it off from on his foot, but not v'lei me'al de me'al, but you don't take it off from on top of. If the straps would wrap around the upper, so then when it's being removed, it's not being removed from his foot, it's being removed from on top of his foot.
Right. That's so from beneath.
The Gemara says, if that's the case, if you're creating a problem, if this is a problem, then why are you saying that it's good b'di'evet? The Gemara says actually the issue is Gezer Mishum Minal Merupat, Inam Mishum Chatzi Minal. Problem is that if you're going to use a shoe that's torn, or a shoe that's only half a shoe, is something that people would wear. Now, yeah, the term shoe here is misleading, because the shoe over here is actually something that's soft leather, and the sandal is something that's hard leather.
Oh.
So the shoe, if it's half a shoe, people could still wear a half of soft leather.
You can't perform
Not a clog.
with the half.
There's no, the bottom is soft. It would be more like the shoes that the ballet shoes. You know, they have like, it's really just like for the little kids.
Yeah, it's soft all around.
Soft all around.
Oh, yeah.
What's that like?
They're soft, bottom was soft, tops was soft, everything was soft. Reminds me of this.
Oh, yeah.
Sneakers are fat.
It can't last too long, soft leather. I mean, it's going to get worn out. No?
Okay, so this is you're saying
Oh, moccasins.
the picture here.
Moccasins.
Moccasin.
Remember that?
Yes, moccasins. That's
That's what
right.
he was wearing.
Yeah, it's because Indians use that. The Indians do chalitza with. The
Okay.
moccasin.
So,
I did a whole study once on footwear. This is very important stuff.
it's interesting because the mok was a word over here that also had to do with the shoe. Where did I see that word? It's moki is socks. It's a type of,
It's slippers.
there's a cloth shoe that was made out of cloth, moccasin.
Leather. Usually
It was
everything's
leather. It was leather.
It could be suede. It could be.
Uh-huh. It's interesting because the word in Aramaic also has to do with footwear. Maki is footwear. Okay, so we're saying now that there's a problem with using the shoe, the soft leather, because you may end up having not a proper shoe and saying, well, that's a shoe, it's good enough. It's torn or it's only half a shoe. Amar Rav. Rav says, Ilav de chamise lechavivi de cholotz besandal de slishinsin. If I had not seen my uncle Reb Chia that used the shoe that had shinsin, is straps, then I wouldn't have used that. I would have used only a sandal of the taya. Taya is like the Arab merchants, I guess. That gets held on very tight. But Heidi done. But ours, Afagav Dispe Chamarta, Katrinan Be Misna, even though it has the Chamarta is a type of knot that holds the shoe in place. It's a knot that probably goes on the front of the shoe. You put it on and it like holds it tight, like where our laces would be. That would be the Chamarta. But you still use a strap. So that it should be a good removal. That means it's held on very tight. So when you remove it, it's being really removed. It has to be on tight to be able to remove it. Okay. Siman, the following Gemara is going to have Hataras, Yevama, and Sandal. It's going to have 3 halachas. So we have a siman for it. Amar Rav, Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. Hataras, Yevama, Lashuk. When does she become permissible to get married? B'shmitas Reiva Ekev. That's when the majority of his heel is exposed. Is the shoe, the sandal's taken off his heel. Majority of his heel. Doesn't have to be totally removed, just off the heel. Meisvei, really? There's a question. Put your ritzuas minal v'sandal eishishamat reiva regal chalitz the psula. If you untie the straps, or if you just take off the majority of the foot, of the shoe off the foot, right? Then it's puzzle. Taima the shamat for true. Taima, what's the reason? The shamat who? Because he was the one that did it. I didn't say that clearly in this quote. Ha shamtahi But if he would have removed it, but if she would have removed it off his foot, chalitza kshera, that would have been good, even though it's only majority removed. It's not fully removed. But it says Raiva regalin, Raiva kavlai. But that's only if it's the majority of the foot. But if it's just the majority of the heel, which is less than that, then that wouldn't be good. So we said before that the majority of the heel is good enough. Here we're seeing that it would only be good with the majority of the foot, not the majority of the heel.
Oh, it said that the Yevama takes the shoe off.
Yevama takes his shoe off. Yeah.
Oh,
Where it says Lai, Hainu Reva Regel, Hainu Reva Ekev. It's the same thing. Reva Regel and Reva Ekev is the same thing. Majority of the foot, majority of the heel. My curl Reva Regel. So why are you saying it's the majority of the foot if you really meant to say the majority of the heel? It says the Kula Cheli the Kari Alea the Dachis. Because all the strength of the leg puts its support on the heel.
Yeah. You put the heel down. Foot down.
Messiah Leila Rabbi Yanai, it's a support for Rabbi Yanai. Dam Rabbi Yanai ben shetirhu b'sham tehi ben shetiri b'shamatu chalitzasa psula shiatahi v'tashmati. Rabbi Yanai says that if he untied it and she pulls it off, or if she untied it and he pulled it off, that's not acceptable. She has to do both.
Oh,
She has to untie and take it off. What was the support for Rabbi Yanai? Just that we said that if he untied the strap, it wasn't good. Okay, one of the statements that we made before is that if he untied it, it wasn't good. That Rabbi Yanai also says. Boy, Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai has a question. Karatu mahu. Let's say he, I think it means she tore it. She tore it. Saraftu mahu. That's really sounds dangerous. She burnt it off. She burnt the knot, the strap.
cigarette lighter match.
Yeah. Gilei karabin and vayika. Do we need just that his foot is exposed? Well, his foot is exposed. Dilma chalitza bin veleka. Or do you need to remove the shoe? You didn't remove the shoe. You burnt the shoe, right? Teku. Where doesn't have an answer to this. That's Rabbi Yanai's question. Wow. Voimine Rab Nechemia me Rabba. Rab Nechemia asks Rabba a question. Rab Nechemia is usually a Tana. Here it's an Amira. Shnei menolim zel gav zemahu. Let's say there's two shoes, one on top of another. Mar says, well, 1 second. Are you saying that you'd remove the upper shoe, but the bottom shoe was still on? Well, you have to remove it from his foot. You didn't not remove it from on top of the shoe. We're talking about you tore off the top one and you removed the bottom one. Oh, you tore the top one, not tore it off. You tore it. But the top one is still there. It's like a feet.
So
A feet on the feet.
shoe over a shoe.
He's wearing a shoe over a shoe. And you tore it enough to get the bottom one off, but you left the top one on.
wow.
Galoshes.
Like galoshes.
Yeah.
But the problem is you can't really get the galoshes out. You can't get the shoe out of the galoshes without removing it. But here somehow he tore it enough that he can get the shoe out.
Shoe out and leaves the outer shoe on.
He leaves the outer shoe on. Chalitza bin the removal.
I've heard in Colombia, South America, there's a place where they could steal your socks without taking off your shoes. So maybe that's how these are so expert.
Do you need the removal of the shoe, which you did? Do you need the exposure, the foot exposed? And you don't have that. Okay. Is there such a thing? I guess it's asking, is there such a thing as a shoe on top of a shoe or something? Yeah, the Chazir Rabbanan la Rav Yehuda denafik b'chamishe zuzei muke l'shuka. He went out with 5 pairs of socks. Muke is a type of shoe or socks. Almuk. You see that? Rashi tells us in Arabic. It's almuk. I'm Rav Yudah Merav. Next statement. First one was Hataras. When does she become permissible? Said by the removal of the shoe or from majority of the heel.
Now we have 5 pairs in this guy.
Yeah.
He's getting divorced.
No, he was just wearing 5 pairs, and that tells us that you can wear a shoe on top of a shoe. People would do that.
So it have to be soft shoes.
Right. Yevama shegdila bein ha'achin. If the Yevama grew up amongst the brothers-in-law, big deal. She's allowed to marry one of those brothers. What's the problem? Her husband, she grew up amongst her husband's brothers. Well, you don't suspect that maybe while she was there babysitting, she has removed the shoes, and she was in her in-laws' house all the time, and they said, "Can you watch the kids?" She maybe removed the shoe. Okay. Taima dalei chazina. What's the reason why we're not suspect of this? Is because we didn't see that she actually removed the shoe from one of the kids. Maybe it can't be a kid. Chalitza needs to be bar mitzvah. So maybe she removed from the bar mitzvah boy. And that's all. This is already a stretch. If it would have been a kid, then fine. But chazinan. But if you saw chashinan, then that would be a problem. Really, is that a problem? You can't just say, "Well, you removed the shoe, so that's it. That's a chalitza." It has to be with kavana. Imagine she owned a shoe store, and the guy came in to buy a pair of shoe, and she took it off, and fitting the shoe on him, and then okay, that's it. Now she's free to marry because she
have to spit in it too.
Yeah, it was another part. Maybe she would have to spit. She'll spit. Okay, Hachikamar. This is what it means. Afagav the chazinan. Even though we saw that she has removed the shoe, but in cheshin shemikivni, you don't suspect that maybe there was kavana there. Ikadarmi, there are those that say this different. Time of delay chazinan. What's the reason why she can still marry one of the brothers if she wants to do yibam if they want to do yibam? Because that's only because we never saw her remove the shoe, chazinan. But if we did see that she removed the shoe, and then we should suspect that maybe chalitza was performed. The katana by kavana. You said that you need kavana. Alma. That's if she wants to get married to someone else. Avalachin mifsala. But she already becomes puzzled to the brothers just from that. Let's leave the Amar Rabbi Merav for tomorrow. Yeah. So this last piece is that there's a difference between being permitted to marry someone else and being permitted to marry the brothers. She becomes prohibited to the brothers because of a chalitza, but that doesn't mean she's permitted to marry anyone else. Yeah. Okay. Leave it here.
Okay, thank you.